Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Sceammeupbotty. It has been about a week and a half since I uploaded to the show, and I don't want to say that life got in the way, because I absolutely hate and detest that excuse, because that's all it is. It's nothing but an excuse. If something's important to you, you're going to get time to do it. But in saying that, that's kind of what did happen. Things has just been crazy. Life did sort of get in the way. As much as I hate saying that there, that's just, oh gosh, that's just defeatist mentality, even if you go to that excuse. Anyway, we're going to get into another little chat about Star Trek, the original series. And this one is Where No Man Has Gone Before. So guys, welcome along to Sceammeupbotty. I am your host, Rodney Stewart, and let's get into it. This is season 1, episode 3, Where No Man Has Gone Before. And if you're watching it in sequence, if you've seen the first 2 episodes of the series, you'll notice a huge difference in the cast and even the way that Spock acts and talks in this episode. It's very out of place compared to episodes 1 and 2, but if you're watching this on Netflix, it's actually listed as episode 4, but I'm going with the original listings, as in, the way the series first came out. But we did do the cage at the very beginning, the original pilot that was dropped. So this is actually the second pilot that was taken to NBC after they rejected the cage. It was actually Lucille Ball, who owned Desilu Productions, where the pilot was produced, persuaded NBC to consider the second pilot, exercising a special option agreement it had with Desilu. She just believed in Roddenberry's vision so much and felt that it was pretty unfair that the cage didn't get picked up. So they got a second shot at it, and in a way it's kind of good the way things turned out, because the way Star Trek ended up when it was cast with Shatner and the crew that we know from the Enterprise. It was just such a good show, and I absolutely love it. And I don't know if they had have stuck with the way the show was in the cage, if it would have had the same success. It's just one of these things we're never going to know. But in saying that, the cage is very, very close to what the original series actually turned out being. So it's just minor little changes here and there, the biggest one of which is the change in Spock. You do see that I'm leaning more towards the serious side of his character in this episode, but at the beginning he still does have that very human way of acting, very smiley and whatnot at the beginning of the episode. But anyway, getting into the episode, the Enterprise is on a mission to actually leave the galaxy, and en route they come across a damaged ship's recorder from a ship called the SS Valiant, an Earth spaceship that was lost 200 years earlier. Its record is incomplete. All they find from the ship is the recorder, obviously, and they hook it up to the Enterprise and try and get what they can from it. The record's incomplete, but it reveals that the Valiant had been swept from its path by a magnetic space storm. So 200 years ago, like warp drive isn't what it is at this point in the series. And I don't want to get into timelines on Star Trek, because it changed so much over the years. Like this 200 years thing in this episode could be completely different, like a couple of seasons down the line. It's just like new territory making the show. And yes, that's a bit of a tangent that wasn't really needed. But anyway, the Valiant, caught in a magnetic space storm, dragged to the end of the galaxy, past the edge of it, beyond where the Enterprise is at this point. And through the records, they discovered the crew had frantically searched for information about extrasensory perception, ESP, in the ship's library computer. The recording ends with the captain of the Valiant apparently given the self-destruct order. So they find out what happened to the ship, and so Kirk decides they need to know more about what happened to the Valiant. So the Enterprise crosses the edge of the galaxy. There it encounters a strange barrier which damages the ship's systems and warp drive. Now I'm just thinking to myself now as I'm talking here, do you remember in Star Trek the final frontier, whenever they crossed the Great Barrier? Part of me now is wondering, is this the same Great Barrier we eventually get to in that movie? Just a random thought as I'm chatting here. So if you do have that information, please feel free to let me know. But anyway, the Enterprise, it's damaged, warp drives out, it's forced into a retreat. At the same time, 9 crew members are killed, and both helmsman Gary Mitchell and the ship's psychologist, Dr. Elizabeth Denner, are knocked unconscious by the barrier's effect. When he awakens, Mitchell's eyes are glowing silver and he begins to display remarkable psychic powers. So they're starting to connect the dots here now. The Valiant encountered this same thing at the barrier, and they ended up having to self-destruct to escape whatever happened. So this is happening. Gary Mitchell and the episode singular. Mitchell becomes increasingly arrogant and hostile towards the rest of the crew, declaring that he's become godlike. The ESP is completely off the scale with him. Like he's in sick bay at one point, and he's reading books on the monitor screen at the side of the bed, and he's just bouncing through page after page after page, and heading towards data-like ways of consuming information. And he's just a regular human being. He's declaring he's become more godlike and forcing his desires with fearsome displays of telepathic and telekinetic power. Spock being the absolute voice of reason here. Mitchell and Kirk go way back to the Academy days. Kirk is simply, he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He's the captain of the Enterprise. He wants to protect the crew and the ship, probably more the ship than the crew. But and he's also, this is one of my best friends of 15 years, and what the heck am I going to do? So Spock being the voice of reason gives him 2 options. There is a mining facility on a remote planet that they can get to under whatever power they have in the Enterprise, just regular old impulse power. They've got no warp drive. They're going to be stuck with this guy. He's getting too strong by the time they get to a fully populated Federation planet. Like, everybody in the Enterprise is going to look like insects next to him. So the 2 options he gives of Kirk is to go to Delta Vega, get whatever they need to repair the warp drive there. It's a mining facility. Everything they need is going to be on that planet. And maroon Mitchell on the planet. And Kirk's like, I can't do that. And Spock, well, your other option is you're going to have to kill him now before you're not able to kill him. It's crazy stuff for a Star Trek show. But they were pushing as hard as they could on this second bite at the apple to be a little bit more daring than what the cage was. So stakes are a little bit higher in this episode. So at this point, they've worked out, the Valiant crew members have experienced the same phenomenon and destroyed the SS Valiant to stop the power from spreading. We never actually find out what this is in this episode, and that's kind of something that I enjoyed about old Star Trek and old science fiction. Like something would happen within the show, movie, whatever it is you're watching, and something like this here, and you get an explanation of what's happened to this character, and eventually what becomes of the character, but you don't actually get a full explanation on what the phenomenon was, or where it came from, where its origin was, and it leaves a nice little bit of mystery to an episode or a movie that pop culture geeks like myself can sit there and just speculate for years and years of what this might have been. And I think that's what modern television is really suffering from at the minute, is just too much explanation, like just telling you absolutely every last detail. If it's not in the show, somebody will go on to a panel and it's like, well, here's what we intended to do, and blah 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 blah, that's the way it is. And it takes all the fun out of being a fan of things. So I do like a little bit of mystery to be left behind in the shows. Getting back to the episode, yes, Spock is like, either murder him, kill him, it's your choice. As powers are going to develop even further, Kirk arguably disagrees. Alarmed that Mitchell may take over the Enterprise, Kirk does eventually decide to maroon him at the facility on Delta Vega. Once there, the landing party tries to confine Mitchell, but his powers have become too great, and they're just on the verge of actually getting out of there. The Enterprise is just about ready to go. There's a kill switch that they've set up that Kirk has Lieutenant Kelso manning it, and he's like, if Mitchell manages to get out, you're the last line of defence. Press that button, it's going to destroy the facility essentially and take out whoever's there. But Mitchell does prove stronger than what they expected. He escapes, he kills Navigator Kelso and escapes by knocking out Kirk and Spock, taking with him Dr. Denner, who has now developed similar powers. She's got the silver eyes and just getting her godlike powers and whatnot. So they disappear under the planet, and Kirk orders the rest of the remaining crew members, get the Enterprise, get her ready to go. If you don't hear from me in 12 hours, go to the nearest Federation planet, or whatever, get hold of Starfleet and just nuke this planet essentially. And this can't go any further. So he follows and appeals to Dr. Denner's humanity for help. She is under the same power that Mitchell is, but she's not as far gone as he is. Like, there's still that piece there where Kirk can, kind of speak to her humanity and try and get her to help him. But Mitchell, Kirk come face to face, and before he can kill Kirk, Dr. Denner, seeing that he's the power that he's got has completely corrupted him at this point, and she actually starts to fight back with him. Mitchell fatally wounds Denner, and before he can recover from the effect of the attack she used on him, Kirk uses a phaser rifle. There's a good little fist fight happening in here too, which was really well choreographed. Kirk uses the phaser, creates a rock slide, killing Mitchell, actually killing him in the grave that Mitchell had made for Kirk. His powers are that strong at this point, he can just think of something and boom, there it is. So we see this open grave at one point in the episode, and he's like, the least we can do is give you a proper burial, Kirk. So he has an open grave, and then the gravestone appears, and on the gravestone it says James R. Kirk. So that just goes to show you, like, things do change. Like, you know, we all know Kirk is James T. Kirk, James Tiberius Kirk, and in this first episode that he was ever in, there's a gravestone there, and the guy's threatening to put him in there. This is your grave, and it's James R. Kirk. So you'd think whenever they commit something they get the screen, they would stick with it, but you know, changes do happen. That's all good. So basically, at the end of the episode, Mitchell's dead, and Elizabeth Denner, Dr. Elizabeth Denner, is dead as well. The attack on their two godlike selves took each other out, essentially, and Kirk just kind of finished it off. And at the end of the episode, you always get a little piece at the end where they're on the bridge, mainly, most of the time, on the bridge at the end of the episode, and they have a moment to consider what they just went through in the episode. And Kirk is on the captain's log, and he makes an entry that both Denner and Mitchell gave their lives in the performance of their duty. And when he stops the log, he explains to Spock that he wants his friend's service record to end positively. He didn't ask for what happened to him, and Kirk showed a little bit of emotion at the end of the episode. He's kind of like, I felt for him too. So it's, you see that early development of Spock in this episode, going from that very human character that we met in the cage to this new Vulcan, more logical character. Was just a little bit less humanity in it, but there, you know, again at the very beginning of the episode, you did see quite a bit of humanity in him. But a fantastic episode. Like, you know, it's not hard to see when NBC got hold of this new trailer, this new episode. They were just like, yeah, we're going to go with it, and it's the best decision that was ever made. And well, maybe not the best decision ever made. Like, that's going to start a few arguments online, I'm pretty sure, if anybody actually listens to this episode. But when you think science fiction and some of the pillars of science fiction, Star Trek is right there in the middle. Absolutely love this show, every iteration of it. Even new Star Trek, to an extent, all the live action stuff at this point, I still believe it's not as good as the old stuff. I haven't got into the property of the animated shows yet, but as far as the live action stuff goes, you know, not 100% in love with it, but I can watch it. I am fairly easily pleased most of the time. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please give me a little written review, and let me know your thoughts on the show, and any suggestions on how I can do it better for you, please let me know. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much